I am going live. Okay, I think we should be live now. Hope everyone is able to hear me. Okay, so let me start before any further delay. Whoever is, thank you all for joining. And if anybody has any problems hearing me out, do let me know in the chat box. Today, in today's Naukri Learning's live session, we will be talking about top React interview questions, how to prepare for them. So our topic our focal point here would be, for anyone who's into front end and wants to prepare for React interviews, or, just to understand what are the topics in focus if you're preparing for React for your any of your front end interviews. So, React is gaining momentum as one of the most robust front end libraries, and it has become the technology of choice for developing web applications. And we'll be covering what in our talk today. We would be covering what topics to focus on, what kind of interview rounds to expect, and so on and so forth. And it's a great pleasure for me to welcome Prashu Agarwal, who is going to be our speaker for today. Prashu is currently the Associate VP Engineering at Naukri.com. He has over 9 years of experience and works with cross-disciplinary teams to deliver great solutions and products. He also has in-depth knowledge of decoupled architecture, native JS, reactjs, Node, Webpack, AWS, Redux, Kafka, so on and so forth. So as you all know, we'll be taking your questions later. So there's a chat box where you could note down, you could send in your questions, and we would take it up after the presentation. So without any further delay, let's begin. Prashu, over to you. I'll just share the screen so that you all can see the presentation also. So I hope it is visible.
Yeah, Niharika, it will be better if you go full screen.
Yeah, sure. Just a second.
So, hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. And I hope after this webinar, you guys will be able to crack the interviews, or I think this webinar will help you in cracking or preparing the React interviews basically. So, introducing myself, Prashu Agarwal. I'm working with Naukri for over 8 years now, and I'm handling, apart from end-to-end applications, I'm also handling the front end of major applications here in Naukri as well. So, as today's agenda, React interviews, questions, and how to prepare for them. So, obviously, we are not going to target the React interviews questions. Basically, we will be sharing the topics, agendas, or the areas where you should be focusing on for preparing the React interviews, basically. Okay. So, moving on to next slide, Niharika. Why React? Why we are hearing so much React is so popular as of now? Everybody is running towards React. All the IT industry are running towards React. All the developers are learning React. So why React? So first of all, React is a library, not a framework, as Angular is, as other frameworks in the market have. So React gives us the liberty to experiment the things, to integrate the things, to integrate the modules, libraries that is suitable or for our use case for our projects. As other applications or as other frameworks that doesn't give us a liberty. They have the restrictive protocols that we have to follow. We have to follow to integrate our modules, components that particular framework gives. But React gives us the liberty to introduce, to integrate the components anywhere, expect from React as well. That is why this is one of the main reasons React is so popular. Industry is running towards React. So moving to the next, is JavaScript required to React for React? So what is React? React is a library over JavaScript. So JavaScript is a core language where React is written upon. So yes, if you want to be a good React developer, if you want to master React, you have to be good hands-on or good experience or good mastery over JavaScript as well. Because what is React? React is nothing. React is a library over library over Java, wrapper over JavaScript. You know? And how do we do React code? Write code in React is using JavaScript only. So you have to be in-depth knowledge of JavaScript. You have to be understanding of end-to-end things of the JavaScript, whether it is basic JavaScript like protocols, uh, data types, functions, and other stuff, and whether it is advanced JavaScript like prototypes, or maybe in EX6, ES7 that we are classes here in JavaScript as well. So yes, JavaScript is definitely required. I think we have a lot of questions uh, in the registration as well. Is JavaScript required for React? Yes, obviously JavaScript is required. How good you understand JavaScript will help you understand the React easier. So definitely JavaScript is required to understand the React. And let's say today React is so popular. After 10 years down the line, any other library or framework is so popular. So how do you learn new framework or library? So React will gives you liberty, or it will make you easier to understand the new framework or new library easier. Right. Moving to the next is the coming to the interview processes, okay, how things works on the different organizations. So basically, all the different organizations, all the different companies have different processes of interview process, right? Some gives you the hands-on part. Let's say some gives you an assessment for a home, for maybe in their office campuses to work upon it. They will give you a small application to build upon, whether it may be on React or any other language they have preferred on. So they will give you a hands-on to check how depth you have the understanding, how good you are with the coding part, and how good you are good with analyzing the problems and also the code quality and how you bundle your application and all that stuff. All around, well, hands-on gives an all-around performance understanding of all the stuff, how you are optimizing your application, how you are architecting your application, all the stuff. Second is data structure and algorithms. So some types of organizations majorly focus on these two parts: data structure, algorithm, and problem solving. So data structures, algorithms gives, and problem solving even gives an idea ki how good you are able to analyze the problem and how are you tackling the problem and how optimized it is. Some will ask you the what is the notation, and which, let's say for example, which search you're gonna use for that particular scenario, which link list you're gonna use, what will be the best suited algorithm for the scenario. So this gives an idea to the interviewer ki how good you are in understanding the problem and analyzing it, and as well as solving it in the best optimal way. So these two rounds are majorly for that. So coming to the fourth is JS tricky questions, or I would say JS advanced questions. So again, so learning a framework or library on JavaScript is equally important as you should learn JavaScript. So this round majorly based on checking your depth on the core JavaScript technology, how well you understand the JavaScript, advanced as well as basic. So interviewer generally asks the tricky questions or the edge cases questions that will give an idea ki how good you are with JavaScript. So some in the first view, this question seems to be very obviously easy. So generally, while I am interviewing some candidates, so they promptly say the answer. Okay, this will be the answer of this. But tricky questions has an hidden intent in them. So obviously, tricky questions give the idea ki how depth you are good with the job. Again, the next one is React and Webpack. So this is one of the most important among all of them. Obviously, if we are preparing for React interviews, so obviously React and Webpack to aana hi chahiye. So what should we cover in React? So React in itself is a very big topic if you're going to learn. So what are the major questions, or what are the major topics will be? Major topics will be around. Uh, Obviously, the first one is the life cycle of the React, right? Second is the combination of the React and the Redux or Flux or context API, any storage management you are using with. So React lifecycle plus Redux, Flux, and all the stuff management part. plus now if you go to the React Advanced, the hooks part, what is the difference between functional components and the class component? This is the more tricky part. So generally, candidates said we don't have the life cycle methods in functional component, but some other differences are there that are more important. Functional components are more optimal than class components. So that's why we introduced hooks to be in the optimal part. So these type of parts, how good you are in the depth of the React and all the stuff gives a good impression to the interviewer. And along with the Webpack, how you bundle your application, how you optimizing your application using Webpack. So generally, I will share a scenario with you. I'm interviewing a person, so he is good in React. So when I move to Webpack, he suddenly start shaking bit on the topic. So what he said, yeah, I don't get the opportunity to work on the Webpack. So I will say, if you don't get a opportunity to work on the Webpack, being a junior member in the team, you might not get the opportunity to work on the Webpack. But I think you should take the initiative to learn how things working through Webpack or how things working behind the scene as well. So I think Webpack is equally important as Reactive. Second is the architecture part. So how are you bundling your application? How things working behind the scene? Let's say you have an application. I generally ask to the candidates, let's say you have an application called abc.com. So as soon as user entered abc.com, how things will be working behind the scenes. So I'm not talking about DNS resolution and IP resolutions. How things working behind the scenes. If your trigger goes to your application, so what are the responsibilities the server side? What are the responsibilities of browser? How the files are getting fetched? What are the files are getting fetched? How are you bundling our application? So this is the architecture part. So how good you are in the architecture is also uh, gives a good idea ki how depth you are understanding the job. Last is the optimization part. Optimizing is equally important in creating a new application. So you should be focusing on the optimization part. So these are the 7-8 major rounds that companies are focusing on. So while preparing an interview, you should target which type of organization you want to go. So some organizations are working on the
Hello?
so some
Prashu, you were not audible. Now you are. Yeah.
yeah. So some organizations are focusing on the hands-on part, and then the React and the Webpack interviews only. There are 2 or 3 rounds. Some are focusing on the majorly on the company. I won't take the names. So some major companies are focusing on data structure, algorithm, problem solving, and then the architectural parts. So some organizations are focusing on all the fronts, and they are giving equal weightage to all the parts. So while preparing for an interview, you should be focusing on what type of organization you are targeting on, and what is the interview process for them. So while preparing, first of all, shortlist your company, shortlist your organization that you are targeting, then go through their interview process and target the topics you should. Because targeting all the stuff simultaneously will take time. So shortlisting the organizations, then go through their interview process, and then get ready for these topics. So generally, React architectural and optimizations are amongst for all the part. Usually, you are getting interviewed for the React developer. So React, Webpack, architecture, and optimization will be the common part. Okay. Hands-on data structures, problem solving. These can be this process or rounds can be changed as per of the company requirements and the process. So coming to the next important topic that we need to cover, Niharika, if you change the slide. Important topics you need to cover. So generally, we get a lot of questions. Do we really need to focus on React only, or do we need to focus on HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, other things as well for getting hired or for being a React developer? So I would say, as I said earlier as well, React is a top up over JavaScript. So you should know JavaScript well. HTML, CSS. Yeah, majorly companies nowadays not focusing much on HTML, CSS, but you don't know the interview, you don't know the interview process, you don't know the mindset of interview and the use case as well. So I think you should start learning or start your process from the HTML, CSS only. It won't take much time, and uh, generally people other developers don't focus much on HTML, CSS, but while we are developing a React application, you are doing HTML CSS. You will be writing HTML CSS. So you should focus on HTML CSS first. Then again, as I said earlier as well, JavaScript basics, advanced, and maybe TypeScript if you want to learn TypeScript as well. So JavaScript should be focused equivalently, or I would say more, you should focus more on JavaScript than React. If you know JavaScript basics, JavaScript advanced good enough, so React will be much, much easier for you. So JavaScript is mandatory for React. So coming to the third point, React basic and advanced. So if you talk about React majorly have, if you divide React into two parts, the React basics comes under React concepts, basic concepts, right? React life cycles, React other stuff, or normal fetch हो गया, या React, how to use React with Redux, yeah, React with Flux, React with context cycle. These are comes from the basic part. And the advanced part is hooks that we have with the hooks part, optimizations in React, architecture discussions in the React. So these comes using memo in the React. So these comes in the React advanced part. And obviously, if you are getting interviewed for React, so questions around this will definitely come. And hooks is one of the hottest topic as of now if you go for a React interview. And Webpack is equally important as React is, because React is an library. JavaScript is the code you will be writing through React, and Webpack is a bundle. Webpack is, I would say, a wrapper that will bundle your JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and all the stuff in one. So React Webpack is one of the most critical part and important part for all the above these stuff. Yes, the depth of the questions may change as per our experience, but Webpack is one of the most important part, and generally developers and the candidates miss that part, because वो सोचते हैं यार हमने रिएक्ट कर लिया तो रिएक्ट बीइंग अ रिएक्ट डेवलपर हमारे क्वेश्चंस रिएक्ट के अराउंड ही होंगे, बट Webpack is one of the most important part, because bundling, optimization, architecture, and all the other stuff will be going through Webpack. So Webpack is equally important for a React developer to learn React as well as Webpack. So how to next two questions, how to opt for a framework and how to offer an approach CSR versus SSR is obviously I prefer for the senior candidates around 4 or 5 years of experience, but you never know how to opt for a framework. I think this question we also get in the queries in the chat below. So how to opt for a framework between Angular versus Vue versus React. So I would say there are multiple factors. What are the use cases? What are the requirements? What is the learning curve of the team? Obviously, and so among all these factors, you will opt for a framework. But these type of questions generally preferred at the senior level. Same with the CSR and SSR. This is client-side rendering and server-side rendering. Again, these type of questions generally interviewers ask for the senior member, because these are the sort of the architectural questions that generally senior members are taking care of. But you should have an idea what is CSR, what is SSR, and what type of these scenarios where we are opting for the one. Latest trends. So generally, latest trends like micro front end, backend for front ends. If generally interviewer asks, they want to sense, they want to check if whether the developer, whether the candidate is up to date. He or she is taking the initiative to getting up to date, to keeping in the to keeping up to the mark. Is it up to the mark? They are learning the things. So latest trends generally are on these fronts to check whether the candidate is up to date and is taking the initiative to learn the new things as well. And obviously, companies like us, Naukri, are also focusing on the latest technologies. We are integrating the latest technology. So it is not only that we want to check the initiative, we want to check that trend only. Companies like us also integrating these latest technologies as well. So having an idea, having an bird eye view over these will also give you an edge over other candidates. So good and deep understanding of the projects done by you. So in the last organization, or the current organization, or maybe in the company internship, on the college internship, or maybe enables us. So I would say this is the one of the most important part. And if you do this thing very, I would say, uh, seriously, so it will give you all the things that we discussed above. It will give you the idea about HTML, CSS. It will give you idea about JavaScript, JavaScript Advanced, React, Webpack, about everything. And it will also, these questions basically gives an idea to the interviewer ki what are the, how involved you are in your projects, how seriously you have done your projects. And from your perspective, for a candidate's perspective, if you have done your project seriously, it will give you the all around knowledge, all around context, all around understanding. You will be aware of Webpack, you will be aware of Redux, you will be aware of JavaScript. So while interviewing candidates, candidates said कि मैंने Webpack का काम नहीं करा था. This is handled by senior candidates of the team or senior member of the teams. या मैंने this part को ही करा था in this project. But it gives an idea कि you are aware of this part, but you haven't done this part. You are aware of this part, so you have taken an initiative to learn the new thing. So apart from understanding, apart from knowledge, interview gets a sense कि candidate ने initiative लिया to learn the new things apart from his scope. So this is one of the most important part you should be focusing on, because it will not only give you the edge over others, it will also give you understanding of all the things, all the technologies, all the other stuff that we have discussed here, whether it is HTML, CSS, Webpack, and others, whether it is framework library choosing or whether it is choosing the CSR or SSR. So focusing on this part is one of the most important things. Architectural understanding, so and optimization. Again, these are the things are majorly done by the senior members of the team. So if you are 1 to 3 year of experience, you might not get the chance to work on these type of the things. But again, I would suggest you should be focusing on this part, as uh, questions around them can be expected. है ना? Can be expected. You never know what are the mindset of the interviewer, what are the use case for the interviewer. So questions around architecture and optimizations will be expected. And what I do, uh, uh, I also ask these type of questions for every candidate, whether it is a 1 year of or whether it is a 6 or 7 year of candidate. But the depth is the expectations of the depth from 1 year candidate and 7 year candidate is different. So understanding of both of them will be an edge or super edge. I would say a super edge for you based on your experience. Yeah. So what we have discussed till now is good, but how to prepare it? So Niharika, if you, yeah. So as I said, data structures and algorithm, multiple companies, multiple organizations are focusing on this part. So you should practice DS algo. We have a lot of online panels, online portals that they are giving us like Greek of Geese and other stuff. So you should be focused. If you're targeting companies that are majorly focusing on DS algo, so you should regularly practicing DS algo, right? If you're targeting this type of organization. Obviously, the reading part. If you are reading continuously like latest trends, you might not get the chance, or you might not be covering all the things in a single project on a multiple project, right? Even here in Naukri as well, even we when we do the project, we might not be able to cover all the scenarios while doing a project. So reading is one of the habits that keep you up to date, that gives you the context of what are the things happening in the market as well, and what we can even try in our regular day-to-day work. So reading continuously will keep you up to date about the trends, about the market trends, as well as the market positions where we are heading towards. And the best is the hands-on part. So how aggressively, how regularly, how intensely you are doing the hands-on part will help you on all the things, whether it is DS Algo, whether it is JavaScript, whether it is Webpack, whether it is HTML, CSS, or any other thing. So hands-on, keeping it regularly, keeping it intense, and keeping it depth in the hands-on, and the variety even. So if you have the variety, you are doing a different type of projects, you are doing a different type of hands-on on the project, it give you an experience that you won't get anywhere. So hands-on is again one of the most important thing to achieve or to learn the new thing or the React or anything. So you should be focusing, you should focus. If you want to learn React, if you want to learn JavaScript, if you want to learn any technology, whether it is Java or JavaScript or backend technology or front-end technology, hands-on is one of the best part to learn the thing. Yeah, think, Niharika, I'm done. Anything, Q&A, any questions? I think we are running ahead of the time. We can take a lot of questions.
Yes. We can actually. I am expecting more people to put in questions because we have an audience of 90 plus right now. A lot of comments, but questions are a little less. Most of the questions are initially the questions that came up were mostly the one that you I think have already addressed. A lot of people ask that why choose React when Angular is popular, or when Angular is also there. So that part, and if you want to throw any more light on it,
Sure.
you can go ahead.
So generally, yeah, this is one of the most, I would say, debatable question. What framework, what library we should opt for, whether it is Angular, whether it is React, whether it is Vue, or anything else. So as I said earlier as well, it totally depends on, first of all, on your use case, and what are the use case you are going to solve from this. First, second, being a manager, being a senior member, you also have to check what is the learning curve of the team. Let's say React, your team doesn't know the React, but how fast your team can learn the React. So learning curve will also be there. Other stuff, as I said, Angular is a framework. If you work in a framework, you will be tight. It is tightly coupled. It is tightly coupled, and you will be uh, uh, restricted to use the components modules given in that particular framework. But choosing a library like React, it gives you a liberty to integrate any module, any component that is more suitable or optimized for your project. So it is a debatable question, but totally depends on your use case, whether you want to go React, whether you want to Angular. I think as of now in today's world, both are giving all the features. If you talk about virtual DOM is given by both. Different type of optimization are given by both. Server-side rendering given by both. So what suits for a use case is the major, I would say, the approach you should be checking for. And other stuff like learning curve, that are the things that managers or the team leads should check. Yeah,
Okay.
Niharika, I think I answered.
Yes. Okay, so now we are having a lot of questions. So the next question that is there here is CSR versus SSR approach. Can you please explain in detail?
Okay. So CSR stands for client-side rendering and SSR is server-side rendering. Generally, uh, uh, if you might heard about SEO, SEO is also very important for companies like Naukri or that gain the traffic, or we should say that have the organic traffic. So SEO is also very important for multiple organizations. So SSR is server-side rendering, where complete page, or you can say the first page is getting rendered from server. And there are multiple approaches in that. कि हम first viewport को server से करें and other stuff and isomorphic apps. These are the optimization approach based on the use case. But server-side rendering is when you get a complete page HTML rendered from server, and CSR is when you using the client's browser to render the HTML. And what is the difference from technical perspective is, generally if you're rendering your page from the server, it helps you on the SEO perspective. It doesn't mean you can't achieve SEO from CSR approach. You can achieve, but based on a use case, based on the things, based on the past experience, SSR has proved better for SEO. Server-side rendering has proved better for SEO. And you can do, we have frameworks and libraries for server-side rendering as well, like Next.js. Next.js is, you can say, a server-side rendering opportunity from React only. So Next.js, even here in Naukri as well, we are working on Next.js for server-side rendering.
Okay. Yeah. So next is, please, can you talk a little bit about Redux also?
Sure. So what is Redux? Redux is a store management library for React. React plus Redux gives a complete application. Webpack is also React plus Redux gives you a complete application. So we have multiple things, multiple libraries parallel to Redux is Flux, but a context API. Again, it depends on your use case. It depends on the learning curve. Redux is a bit older. Context API is a bit the newer technology. So again, depends on your opportunity. Depends on your use case. If what things you want to integrate in your project, what will be your use case, what suits you best. So Redux or context API or Flux are the same thing to use. And it is an storage management where we are storing our all the objects, all the states. So it will help you to manage the React application better. Yeah, Niharika.
So the next question. Okay, so this question has been asked multiple times. This is by people who are beginners and freshers. They are saying that as a fresher, should they focus more on React or JavaScript?
So as I said, React is a top-up or React is a wrapper over JavaScript. So, and what are you writing in a React application? It is JavaScript only. So you will be writing JavaScript only in a different way in React application. So JavaScript, I would say, is mandatory for learning. For you can learn React as well without learning the JavaScript. But if you want to master React, and if you want to learn apart from React, you want to learn any other framework, it will be easier for you if you have good understanding of JavaScript. So in my sense, JavaScript, I would say, is mandatory to learn. JavaScript is a core language, है ना? So you have to be a good understanding of JavaScript.
Okay. Another question: TypeScript, Babel, and testing library. What about them? Are these important topics for interviews?
So TypeScript, Babel, and what, Niharika?
And testing library.
Testing library. Oh, so all these things are different things. These are not the same thing. TypeScript again is a similar to JavaScript, is a core language. There are some benefits over JavaScript that TypeScript is giving to us. Babel is I would say, you don't have to learn anything on Babel. Babel is just a compiler that will change ES6, ES7 to a normal JavaScript. And the testing just an enzyme. So again, it depends on the interviewer. What are the mindset? What are the use case? What are the requirements or the criteria for that interviewer? Generally, test cases में नहीं जाते हैं. TypeScript पे, yeah, you can have the questions over TypeScript. You can have the question. You can don't have the question around Babel. So generally, if companies want to know your strong areas about TypeScript or testing suits, so company gives the hands-on part. So companies who are giving you the hands-on assessment or hands-on assignment, so they want to check your UTs, ITs, and all this stuff. Generally, you won't get much questions around Babel or the test suits, but yeah, questions will be there around TypeScript. And TypeScript is generally nothing, is again you can say JavaScript plus plus. So if you know JavaScript, you won't take much time to understand TypeScript.
Okay. Okay, there are too many questions. Someone is asking how states and props are different. Please explain.
So how state and props are?
States and props are different.
Okay. So this is majorly the core technical questions, I would say. State, if I have to give the answer in the one line, we can debate over this. So if I have to give the answer in the one line, state is basically you can say a variable or a set of variables that are running inside a component. And prop is an sort of the variables or an object or the data that is running inter the components that are exchanging between the components. Or you can say props are the master data, and state is the data inside a component.
Okay.
As I said, just Niharika, I want to add one thing more.
Yeah, so, sure.
As I said, Redux is a storage management library. So we have a master data there, or you can say that all the components are referring to the Redux. You can say the props, and the data in the Redux is props, and the component and the data inside that is running inside the components is state.
Okay. Yeah. There is another common question that I'm seeing. How do freshers can freshers start in front end development? So someone is asking, if I learn React, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, is it how to start as a fresher in overall front end, not just in React?
So I think HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React, as you said, I would say you have covered the major parts as well. So if you want to start, you can do the hands-on part, do small projects, small applications, maybe online, maybe on yourself. So it will give you an idea of how the things running. And I think React, JavaScript, HTML, CSS is enough to start with, including Webpack. If you are setting your application, React application or yourself, so Webpack will also be getting included by default. So I think these 4 or 5 topics are more than sufficient to start with.
Okay. Okay. Next question is: Should I learn Node with React, or is it okay to use Python as backend?
Is it completely okay to use any language as a backend? Maybe it's Python, JavaScript, PHP, sorry, Java, PHP, or anything. So it is perfectly okay to use any backend language with JavaScript. Yeah, Node nowadays multiple frameworks are coming that is giving the combination of Node and the JavaScript, but it is perfectly okay to use any backend with JavaScript or React.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. All right. So there are a lot of questions, but unfortunately, we won't be able to take all. One last question I would like to take, because we also had a similar question during the registration process. Does having projects in GitHub help in getting job interviews? Do the interviewers check those projects? Or you can also throw some light on what kind of projects people can do to, get into React.
So again, it depends on the organization. What is the interview process? So the companies who are giving the hands-on assignments for you, they are focusing on the GitHub part. They generally they do their they gives you their own application, a small application that you might need to be covered in 2 3 days, and you will be pushing the code on GitHub. So they will be checking through the GitHub only. So you have to check what is the process of the company or interview process. And what was Niharika second question is, it really help?
Second question is that do interviewers check those projects? I mean, do they give emphasis to them?
Uh, Not really, not much. Unless and until they are given by them only. So if it is given by the organization, they obviously they really do. But if it is not, they don't really do check the GitHub or the Stack Overflow or stars and other stuff. Majorly focusing on the current your interview process or the interview, how the interview goes.
Okay, so now actually we have multiple questions on projects. Someone Parvati is asking that, no, sorry, Suresh is asking, please let me know if there are any projects in reactjs that people can do. And another person is he's saying that currently I'm learning React and has built many projects like Netflix clone, Spotify clone, but he does not have any work experience behind him. So any advice for such freshers?
So generally, I'm taking the second question first. So generally, what I have seen now the trend here in India as well. So companies not focusing on your degree, your experience, or anything else. Companies are focusing on how to well you understand the thing. So if you have the good idea about React, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and all the stuff, and you don't have any professional degree and professional experience, nothing to worry about. You should have a good understanding of the things or the technology and all of the stuff. So if you have interview scheduled, you should track the interview. You should be focusing on the learning part. You should don't be focusing on the professional experience, professional degree, and all the stuff. So companies are now focusing. हम सुनते थे पहले कि in Google is not focusing on the degree and all the stuff. So now here in India as well, companies are starting focusing on the learning part only, not the degrees and professional experiences.
Right. And I think we don't have much time. So one last question. Someone has asked a very simple question: how to start learning React.js? So you can also maybe throw some light on any online resources, which are good online resources that people can.
Right. To start with, as I said, hands-on is one of the best way to learn with. But to start with, you can start. So we have the React.doc that gives you the complete React document, and HTML, CSS, JavaScript. These are the mandatory 3 4 things that you should start with. And online portal. So we have an e-learning portal here in Naukri that gives you all the courses. around all the backend, front end, all the stuff, and the any online portal like HackerRank and other stuff that where you can try, or you can try on the local laptop as well. You can get the CRA, that is React application setup from React Master website, and you can start with it. But the hands-on is one of the best way to learn the thing.
Right. Okay, so I'm sorry I won't be able to take all the questions. There are still some questions coming in, but thank you so much, Prashu, for a very insightful session. And we had a very good number of audience, and they also wanted to know a lot of things. They put in a lot of questions. Thank you so much for guiding them. And also thanks everyone who has joined. And I know we couldn't take up all the questions. So what you can do is once this video gets available on YouTube, you can post in your questions in the comments, and we'll try to come back to you as many questions as we can answer. So with that, we conclude.
Right.
So with
yeah,
that,
right, Niharika. So as I said, you can drop the questions. You can drop the questions on the YouTube chat, or maybe for meet on the LinkedIn as well. So I'll try to answer them as well. And thanks, Niharika, thanks for giving me the opportunity to help candidates to crack the interviews and learn nothing as well.
Yeah, actually, I'm getting a lot of positive comments. Thank you, sir. Amazing session. So I'm pretty sure they also liked it. And if please, once again, I remind everyone, you're free to post in your questions in the comments, and we'll of course try to get back to you. Thank you so much, Prashu, once again.
Thank you, Niharika.
Thank you.